All right. Well, I think we'll get started. I just want to start off by thanking you all for joining us here today. Like I said, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know a little bit about your business, where you're calling in from. We want to, like I said, start creating those connections right from the start. So we are so happy today to have a few of our friends from Wells Fargo joining us to share more about, our payment acceptance solutions and what more we can be doing besides just taking payments through credit card. So today we have Damon Dishman, Rainey Rhodes, Matt Miraldi, and Cabra Goldstein joining us, and I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit later. But like I said, there's so much more that we can do besides just accepting credit card payments with the payment solutions that you already have or are looking to implement within your businesses. If at any point throughout the presentation that you have any questions that pop up, please do ask your questions in either the Q&A box or the chat box within Zoom. And we have built in a couple breaks throughout the presentation to make sure all of your questions get answered. And before I pass it over to our friends at Wells Fargo, I do want to just give a quick plug about Pacific Community Ventures. If you're not already working with us, I will share out some more information about how you can sign up to join our business advising program and get access to free mentors and advice through our program and in our organization. We're a nonprofit that supports small businesses. And we want to see you all succeed, and we will do anything we can to help you get there. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Damon.
Well, thank you, Morgan, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Damon Dishman. I am our small business segment manager for Wells Fargo in the region that we call Pacific North, so all of the Bay Area, including Silicon Valley, and then the western part of the states up through Alaska, so Oregon, Washington, Alaska. And I just, Morgan, I want to thank you and your entire team at PCV for all the work you do to enable our business owners and our aspiring business owners in the community. And we really appreciate your partnership and all the work you're doing. Like you, we at Wells Fargo have been working really hard this year to find ways to enable the small business community. Nothing comes easy these days, it seems like, but with the pandemic, certainly things are even harder than ever, perhaps for a lot of businesses. So excited to be here. For the members on the line, as we jump into today's agenda, Morgan and I worked on kind of how we can leverage technology to help enable small businesses. And so the spirit of today's topic really is highlighting some of the things when you think about security features, but also there's so much more that businesses can do with their payment acceptance options than they were able to do, several years ago. And so really, really excited to present to you today. We'll spend some time, like I said, going over kind of payment security and fraud. It's such an important part of a business's risk management. We will open up each of our topics to Q&A, so excited to hear what's on your minds. And we've got a great set of experts with us today who I'll introduce here in just a second to help answer those questions. So, and we all know that your learning and the experience we all get is more enriched as we get questions. So do encourage you. All questions are great questions, so look forward to that portion. Then we'll go through some features that the payment acceptance apps, both at Wells Fargo and really within the industry, can offer all of you. We certainly aren't trying to pitch any products to all of you today, but much more coming with the educational aspect of how some of these payment acceptance products can really, again, enable the business. And we think most of these options we talk about today should be available, at least through some of the major offers out there for payment acceptance. And then you'll see Cabra on the line here, Goldstein. She's actually with one of the apps and has a ton of technology that can help enable business. She's with Home Base and very, very excited to hear her presentation They help develop the applications that really can enable the business, and she's just got a wealth of information to share with you relative to what we think might matter most to all of you. And again, we'll close out with Q&A at the end. So excited to get started. With us today is Rainey Rhodes. She is one of our merchant services or payment acceptance reps in the Bay Area. So we're really excited. Rainey brings a ton of passion to her work. And I think one of the things that you all as attendees will see a lot of value in, she's going to bring to life some great customer stories that are recent and relevant to help really illustrate how some of these options might enable your businesses. So excited about having Rainey. We also have Matt Moraldi on the line. He is one of our merchant leaders, been in the industry for a long time. He's just really on the line to keep us in check. So we're excited to have him keeping us in check, but having that extra level of expertise depending on questions, et cetera. So great to have you, Matt. And again, Cabra, we talked about earlier. Great to have you. Really appreciate you carving time out from your day job to support us at Wells Fargo, and also, of course, our partnership with Pacific Community Ventures. So Rainey, I will turn it over to you to get us started around payment security and fraud.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share some information with you all. As Damon kind of alluded to in the beginning, when we talk about merchant services or payment acceptance, many times it's one of those set it and forget it services, right? So you started a new business and now your main priority is, how do I take in money from my customers, right? How can I bill them? Do I invoice them? Can I take credit and debit cards? And many times, unfortunately, that's as far as we go. We're like, okay, we've got a card reader, we're good to go. There's nothing else they need to be providing to me. And that simply isn't true. And so I'm excited because it sounds like many of you are either new business owners who may not have already made the decision on whether you're taking credit or debit cards, or maybe potentially there are people on here who are still planning for their dream business to open, right? And so this is really a great time to get this type of information because you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the curve, right? So if you haven't made a decision on a company to go with, a point of sale system to go with, I think the information we're going to provide to you today is going to help you to make that determination and make that best decision for your business, right? So we'll get into our next slide. Awesome. So data breaches. So when we talk about security and fraud as it pertains to credit card transactions, I just want to bring one thing up. I think everybody on this webinar now has probably multiple credit cards in their wallet, right? And when we signed up for those credit cards, we were excited. We saw, you know, we're going to get 30,000 flight miles and we're going to finally fly after this pandemic is over, right? But on the back, I'm sure there was some type of disclosure that said zero liability to you as a consumer, right? So now when we're using our credit and debit cards out in public, we are just doing so with ease, or we're ordering tons of stuff from Amazon because we need some retail therapy right now. We're doing so with ease because we know if our credit card information is stolen or if our debit card is lost or stolen, we don't have liability on those purchases or transactions that took place, right? And so thinking about the other side of the coin, when we're a consumer and we've got fraud on our card and we call our bank, they give us our money back and we're whole again and we can go shopping again. But that money comes from somewhere, right? And so when we look at the other side of the coin, we're talking about you all, the business owners. What are the ramifications for you when you're taking in a fraudulent transaction? And so this talks to that point. So not only do you have fees that are associated with what we call chargebacks, right? Somebody comes to your business, they make a purchase, they leave, you're good, you register your sales for the day, and then boom, next month's statement you get back, and there's all these fees from chargebacks, and now you have to reimburse those customers. And so you got that aspect of it. But you look at the other aspect of having compromised issues or data breaches in your business, and there's a reputational risk as well, right? So think about from your end as a consumer, whenever you've had, and I would stand to wager, if you guys can put it in chat, that would be awesome. I would stand to wager at least 90% of us have had some type of credit card fraud in the past. Maybe you have a claim open now, right? It's the holidays and it tends to spike up in that time. And so think about it from the perspective of that business owner who's getting that charge back. They don't necessarily know what their resources are, right? They've got fees that they're paying to their merchant provider who's doing the investigative research on, did this fraud take place? Is this someone who regrets their purchase? They also have the reputational risk of, now I've got my card compromised at your business, and maybe I frequent your business and it's in my community. Now all of a sudden I'm telling my friends, oh my God, don't go back there. I made a purchase 2 days ago and all of a sudden there's a $300 transaction on my card. So trying to acquire new business and finding those new customers now becomes a lot more difficult because you've got some reputation damage. So not even just looking at the fee part of it, there are a lot of other ramifications that happen when we don't have security within our business. And so as we move to our next slide, we can get into payment security. So what are we talking about when we talk about the security of a payment and layered security? So this helps to safeguard your customer's card data with security technology. This includes end-to-end encryption and tokenization, and terminals that really anyone in the industry is offering now should be PCI certified. So you really want to look for that. So number one is chip card technology. Yay, we all have really cool credit cards now, right? I remember working for the bank in a time where we got you a credit or debit card that was just a little piece of plastic and you carried on about your way. And then sometime late in 2014, there was all this buzz going around. Oh my goodness, in the US, we're about to start getting our credit cards with those chips, just like they have in Europe, right? And so we have customers coming in, oh my God, Europe's been on this for years, we're so behind. And we were right to have that type of excitement about it, because it did help protect a lot of these issues. Now, the chip card is embedded chip that helps protect against counterfeit cards and the reuse of stolen data from lost and stolen cards. Now, I remember getting my first credit card, my first bank account, and being in college, and you don't have a lot of money in that account. You kind of like, oh, great, I've got a credit card. Hopefully I can pay it off this month. And I remember getting a monthly statement that showed like a $350 charge at a Walmart in like Ohio. And for some reason in that time frame, it was always like a Walmart or a Walgreens. But I would wonder, how can someone do that when I still have the card in my possession, right? I never lost this card. It never got stolen. I've never shared my PIN number, right? You go through the list of questions that your bank, asks you, and you're like, how could they have done that? Well, this is exactly how. So people were making, and for a while, think about this as someone's full-time job. These people who are skimming credit card data, they're getting up in the morning like the rest of us, having their cup of joe, and then they move into their day of frauding. And so the chip card technology really helped to cut down on people making duplicate copies of cards or getting the card number. Back in the days, you didn't have a shredder at your house. You got your credit card statement, you ripped it up into tiny little pieces because you were like, if someone finds my trash, they get my card numbers all over. So the chip card technology really helps with that. And then we have encryption and tokenization. So this is sensitive data getting encrypted into a cryptogram and being replaced with a token or a random number that helps prevent data from being stolen in transit. What the heck does that mean, right? That means when we are actually running that transaction, instead of that information being transmitted or stored somewhere with your full card numbers, right, to cause a security breach, that information gets replaced with tokens. So if someone does get a hold of that information, there's not much they can do with it, right? They can't go on Amazon and make all their Christmas wishes come true, with all the data they found. So that's been a huge help as well. And then we get down to PCI compliance. So PCI compliance is the part that sort of rests on the business owner. This is the industry standard that helps merchants employ and maintain practices and processes to help cardholder data and reduce fraud. So this is something that you do on an annual basis with your merchant provider. Now, the extent to which your merchant provider will help you with this might vary, but anybody who is currently running credit card transactions in any way on the internet, in person, however you're doing it, You've got to be PCI compliant. So you should be familiar with sort of the checks and balances that you do at the end, generally at the end of the year. And that is sort of the business owner taking the onus of saying, what can I do to help safeguard my business and make sure that I'm running the process the way it needs to be run, right? So you don't want any unnecessary exposure. And so going on to our next slide. Common causes of security breaches. And now we're going to get into a couple examples of what happens and what we can do to prevent it from happening. So skimming. Skimming is common. This is when we're stealing data by installing unauthorized card readers at the point of sale. So they're capturing cardholder data and then they're using that stolen data to make purchases, pay bills, what have you. And, the business owner goes on nonchalant, has no idea that this is even happening until it comes back, to sort of get the business. So tips to avoid: limit access to point of sale equipment. This one is a huge one, and you will see this as a repeated theme. When you're talking about safeguarding your business, the number one thing of importance for you is making sure that you have safeguards around the information and the access levels, right? So maybe you as a business owner, you need to see everything that's going on at every given moment in the business. And I'll say, for an example, I work with a lot of restaurants. I don't know if it's because I'm a foodie and I just gravitate towards going in there and trying to talk to them, or if it's just completely pure coincidence, but I've got a lot of restaurant clients. And what I've noticed, especially with like my pizzerias, my quick service restaurants, a lot of times they're selecting their employees from a specific age range, right? So lots of part-time, lots of 17 through 22-year-olds who might be, this is kind of, I'm getting money for my dates on the weekend, but I'm still school's my priority. And what I hate to see is when businesses get their first point of sale system, they're so gung-ho about it, they're excited. This is a big major move for their business, right? This is a huge advancement in technology for them. And they get excited and they bring all their employees around and they're like, great, this can do all of these things. You can access reporting from the beach, the person told me, and they're showing them all these things and they're building their employees in and they're giving everyone the same level of access. So think about the repercussions of that, right? So if I'm running a business, with my brother or sister or husband or wife, yes, by all means, have access to everything. We are a joint household, etc. But if I'm running a business and I'm the owner and majority of my employees I met 2 weeks ago on the interview, right? How do I know that their priority is safeguarding my business? How do I know that they're trying to ensure the success of my business when they don't have a vested interest? So really taking a step back and thinking when you're first moving into this, who has the most vested interest in my business and it's succeeding? Sarah, who's 17, who works here from 6 to 9 on Fridays, just so that her parents don't yell at her. Does she really need to have access to the reporting, right? Probably not. So making those decisions a little bit more in the beginning. And we hate to think that when we're running a small business and we're hiring employees, we never want to think the worst of them, right? We're all a small family. And so you hate to think, well, the little cousin over here is skimming off the top, but you really just need to put yourself in that position of making a smart executive decision on who should have access to what. So next thing, regularly inspect terminals for anything that looks suspicious. So always having your eyes and your ears open. One of the common mistakes I see with new business owners is they're overwhelmed, right? This is new. This is a whole new world. You get started in the business because you have a passion. Maybe you have passion for making crepes, but you have no idea how to turn that into a business. And so you try and get your team surrounding you. And then you think, well, now that I have my employees hired, let me step back and do these things. They can take care of the rest. That gets a little tricky as well, because again, you want to make sure the right people are in charge of the right thing. So keeping a lookout for everything, being your own watchdog, right? Not relying on someone else to do it. Next is terminal access. We kind of touched on that. So terminal access, fraudulent access to the new point of sale terminal shipped with default settings by using rotating MCC or merchant category codes. The tips to avoid that is limiting access to the new point of sale shipments. So Making sure when you get that, it's put somewhere protected, no one's tampering with your devices. That again comes with keeping your eyes and your ears open. And then turning off the terminal during off hours. This is a big one for shared space businesses. So if you have a hair salon and your best friend has their nail salon and you're sharing that space or what have you, and you close earlier, making sure that you're shutting off your device. So think about this the same way you would think about your computer safety, right? If you're using a computer at the library or at your local bank, you're going to make sure you're signed off before you leave. So sort of keep that same notion in your business. And then internal fraud. Internal fraud is, hey, those employees are up to no good. So this is fraud committed by employees, contractors, or partners who have access to the company system. Again, another piece of, should they have access to the system or should they not? So making that decision in the beginning is super crucial. So tips to avoid. Minimize employees accepting payments without supervision. This one's key. It is a little tough because you never want to get a new piece of equipment in and go, okay, Sally's not able to do that unless you're monitoring her. But maybe what you do is you put additional safety guards in there. So yourself as a business owner, maybe your trusted manager, maybe those are the only two people in the business who need to be able to issue returns, you know, do voiding transactions, access other avenues inside of the point of sale. Create a manager approval process for high-risk transactions such as credit returns. So again, making sure the right people have the right type of access. You don't want someone who, again, might be, and this is not to knock 17-year-olds because we were all 17 at some point, but I can tell you when I was 17 in the workplace, if someone came to return a pair of worn jeans, I'm like, yeah, not my business. Sure, here's your $30. And so really think about that. Who is going to be able to let money run back out of your business, right? That's crucial. Limiting remote access to only those who need it. Again, just about every point of sale that is out there in the marketplace now has a means of accessing data either via a cloud or somewhere remotely. Right? And so that's great for a business owner. You're on a vacation on the beach. You don't want to have to be in the business, but you need to know what's going on there. But again, that's some access that probably only a few people in the business should have. And don't allow employees to save cardholder data on hard drives. This one is kind of a no-brainer, but believe it or not, I have seen this. I have seen this happen with companies I've worked with before. Where there's a bit of oversight, people aren't being watched as much as maybe they should be, and some data was stolen from customers. And so that's a huge reputational risk as well, having somebody on your own team who is taking information from your valued customers, right? Your livelihood is depending on these people coming in and giving you their business. And now you have someone internally taking money from them. So that's huge too. We can get into our next slide now. Perfect. So common causes of security breaches continued. So a couple of other things to look for. Malware installed in terminals. Again, this is where we get into thinking about your point of sale system in your business the same way you think about your home PC, the same way you think about your MacBook, your laptops. You keep those up to date, right? Because you don't want viruses getting in and you need to use them on a daily basis. So think about your point of sale system in your business that same way. So some things to avoid, or some tips to avoid. Using a two-factor authentication to access systems. So these are a couple of different examples. So something you know, a password or a phrase, something you have, a token device or a smart card, these are huge. Something you are, biometric, like a fingerprint. These are really big. And again, very industry standard. So whether you're looking at, you know, whichever company you're looking at, pretty much a guarantee they're going to offer some sort of solution that's going to have any of the following. Limits remote access to those who need it. Again, we see this as a recurring thing. People don't need to be looking in at a bird's eye view into your business unless they have a very serious vested interest in that business, right? If you're a 50-50 owner, cool. Look in there all you want. I need you to help me drive the sales while you're at it. Maybe you can get in the office and put a couple hours in. But, you know, little Sally on her day off on the beach, why is she going on her phone to look at what's happening in the business? Changing passwords every 60 to 90 days. This one is huge, and I am guilty as heck on this one because I hate changing that password, right? We all get into a space where we're like, oh, we've got 42 different passwords and some have to have a special character and this one's got a digit, and it's just a lot. And we end up wanting to be comfortable setting our passwords similarly everywhere. And that's a really big risk because somebody sees you putting that password in on your laptop and it's the same one you use on your point of sale and everything is topsy-turvy. So making sure 60 to 90 days, change that password. If you have to, you know, come up with some different tips to memorize it or whatever you have to do, it's safety. So, and then automatically disconnecting remote access when not in active use. Again, you're not going to sign into your bank account at the library and then walk away. You're going to sign out. I think I've had that happen to me once in the past where someone put their ATM card in, took out cash, and then just got in their car and drove off. I'm like, okay, cool. So you just want anyone to take, is donation time? So make sure you are signed out of things. That should just be a common practice even in regular life. So on to phishing. Phishing is obtaining sensitive information such as passwords or account information for the purpose of fraud. Tips to avoid phishing. Don't disclose sensitive information, right? We've all learned this over the last 10, 20 years. Somebody calls you asking for your social, probably fraud. So same thing when people are asking for sensitive information on your business. You're talking to your merchant provider, they already have your merchant ID number, right? So there are other security questions they can ask you besides asking for specific information off the terminal. Don't respond to phone calls requesting sensitive information. Again, I don't know how many different fraud schemes are ongoing now. I'm constantly getting Social Security office sending warrants for my arrest, but I'm still here. So keep that in mind. If something seems fishy, probably it is. Avoid clicking on hyperlinks in emails. There's a lot of that going on right now, especially during the holidays. I know there's a big one happening with text messages going to people telling them that their mail was undeliverable. I've been seeing that a lot. And then you click on something and it asks for your password to Amazon, and those aren't real either. If you have questions, always contact your financial institution and we'll let you know. If we send something out, there will be a very distinctive difference with that template and how that will look. Use business computers only for work-related activities, and regularly download and install security updates on your computers. Again, making sure things are up to date and making sure you're not getting malware or viruses on your terminal. Very important. And so on to our next slide. All right, so payment security, help secure business and customer data. So we've covered a lot here. Changing your password regularly every 60 to 90 days. That's a really big one. I know it hurts, but we've got to get accustomed to doing it. Limit access and regularly inspect your terminals. Talked about this. Make sure that you have your eyes and your ears open. You're going to be the biggest fraud detector in the business. You'll know if something's wrong and something's not up. Avoid storing unnecessary data. If it doesn't need to be stored, don't have it stored because it's just a bigger risk if somebody can get that information. Keep your systems up to date. Make sure you're doing all the installations that need to be done. And with your point of sale, the company providing it should be on top of this with you. So make sure if you've got a point of sale now and this is all new to you, this is great information to go back to that company with and say, hey, I just learned a bunch of stuff and all you told me was my rate. So that's a really big takeaway. By the way, if you walked out knowing your rate and you have your pricing squared, you're still leaps and bounds ahead of a lot. I sit down with people all the time who are just like, it's a mess. I just know I could take cards. Limit remote access. Only those who need to know should know. And tokenize and encrypt data. That's a good summary. On to our next slide. And now we're at the Q&A. So tons of information I just spewed out, but I hope we get some engagement and excitement and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, Rainey, awesome. Appreciate all the great information. As we get folks ready for the Q&A, I thought I would jump in and give you a second to catch your breath. Again, thank you. But do you have any customer examples recently where, you know, they took advantage of one of these features or maybe experienced some fraud or some aspect where they had a breach? And how did that business handle that, and share that story?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've got a couple. One in particular was kind of a big mess, and this happened not too long ago, also around the holidays. I had a ramen restaurant out in South City, and they've been open for a while, been very successful, came into a branch because they suspected one of their employees of dabbling in the accounts. And doing the account research, the banker found out not only did that particular employee, they were skimming off top, they also had been taking card data from the card readers for time. So they were continuously getting these chargebacks, had no idea, why am I getting so many chargebacks? Well, this is a restaurant, right? It's not high in that industry that I should be getting these types of chargebacks. And so they've been taking customer data, and not only that, they'd also, it was a prime example of giving too much access to the wrong person, because this person had been in charge of opening their bank accounts, setting everything up. So it made it very easy for them to have access to these things. But not only that, the employee had taken his girlfriend of 5 years and added her to the payroll of the company. And that employee was in charge of making sure the payroll went out. So of course it was undetected. And this person had been taking a payroll draw every 2 weeks for 3 years. And so it was huge, because, I mean, I see this type of thing happen. Most of the time you see it, it's a couple months in, right? And it's great. We can kind of nip it in the bud. Yes, you had a loss as a business, but the loss is minimal. So imagine you have these, you think you have these safety guards in place, right? You have a manager, and this was a manager who did this. So you're going, okay, this person's been in the industry for XYZ years. The business owner actually spent a lot of time traveling, which made this just so easy to happen, right? I mean, the owner's out of the country and the manager's coming in every day. And so for 3 years, they had been taking customer data. They were very judicious with how they were using the data, though. They were ensuring that they only got a few chargebacks per month, but they had been taking money for years, and now they've had 3 years of their girlfriend being on payroll. And so we had kind of a mess, right? So we went in to clean that up, collecting the additional documents, getting their account set up the right way, but also putting them into the right type of service where they have the security features, not only at their disposal, but having someone to sit down and go over a comprehensive breakdown of what it is that we can do to help you moving forward. That was crucial. So not a great story to begin with, but we were able to turn it around completely for them within that same month. They got rid of that employee. They ended up pursuing legal charges against them. And they got their business cleaned up, and now they are very, very much more aware of what's happening in the business every day. They're checking their terminals. They're actually having the owner, even if he is out of the country, they're having the owner now sign off on the payroll registers. So they're just doing things a lot cleaner now.
Wow, great story. And yeah, we don't mean to scare people, right? But it really does illustrate the importance. And, you know, I think we can probably relate as consumers. You know, oftentimes we learn when we go through it, and the spirit of today's education really is about ways we can prevent that. So awesome story. All right, I've got a question for the group. Rainey or Matt, either of you could take this. Karen asks the question: Google offers the option of saving usernames and passwords. Do you frown against this? Question number one. And then the second part is also, I keep my passwords on a secured app on my iPhone. What are your thoughts about these two processes?
I don't know if Matt wants to take any of this, but I'll give my 2 cents on it. I try and stay away from the saved passwords personally. I do know that it is common practice. However, when I'm sitting with customers and they need to do something, you know, on a shared computer, all of a sudden I see them tense up because they're like, well, it's already in there on my computer. So they don't really have the memorization down for the password. And you never know what could happen with a computer. You don't want to be in a position where you're trying to call around, because when you're setting up your passwords and for your banking, etc., a lot of people have the misconception that if they contact the bank, we can give them the password. And that's just not how it goes. You're the only person who knows it. They're fairly easy to reset though. But I don't know. I don't know if I can speak too heavily to it. I just don't. I'm not a big believer in having the information stored there, especially because most of my devices in my household are shared. So it's common that if I have a friend come over, oh, I want to look something up on the internet, here's my laptop, right? And there's everything. So I think you're better off if you can just memorize it.
Great. And I would just add, you know, this is obviously a very personal decision, Karen and others. Like Rainey, I do an app with my passwords, like you stated in your question. I also would suggest, this is something I do, I never save any of my financial related passwords. So you think about my online banking, any of those, I keep all those 100% saved in my brain. And then if it's a, you know, online purchasing site or something like that, I use a completely different password or set of passwords for those. Sometimes I will save those into the password saving tool in Google, et cetera. But again, my thought and recommendation is keep all of your financial passwords completely separate, different, and unique, as well as maybe in the brain or in another place outside of those. Awesome. Tabra, I know you wanted to jump in for on this question as well. We'll turn it to you.
Oh, I apologize. No, I did not. I was just, I clicked a wrong button.
Oh, okay, great. Well, yeah, Karen, same thing. I've only seen the financial institution. So Karen's question she put in the chat there is, what about face recognition versus passwords? You know, I will tell you, I can only speak on behalf of Wells Fargo, of course. We do have face and fingerprint recognition. And, you know, that has been tested and retested and further vetted. So I am very comfortable personally with those two options. Again, I only see those with the financial institutions. I haven't seen that with more of the retailer, online retailer situations. But I would say in general, if those are offered by the institution, those would be a secure way to sign in as well. So great question there.
I love the face recognition. That's like my go-to. It's so much easier. You don't have to type anything in. I love when I'm being prompted, do you want to sign in with the family? Yes, please do. So.
Awesome. So Morgan, I don't see any other questions. I'll just check with you in case you're seeing anything in the chat screen. Otherwise, we can transition to our next set of features we wanted to highlight.
Yeah, I don't see anything else, but I do want to encourage everyone, throw your questions in throughout the presentation, and we'll have another break for questions later on.
All right, some other features. So I want to give sort of an overview of a few other applications that I thought were of particular interest to this group of small business owners. One of them is Davo. Davo is an application that assists with paying your sales tax. So I spent some years in payroll prior to this role, and I can tell you one of the things business owners hate to do is remembering when their taxes are due, making sure that the payments happen in a timely fashion, making sure they're not underpaid or overpaid. Because as you know, Uncle Sam, the IRS, they're not very forgiving. State of California is not very forgiving. So you underpay it. I've seen people underpay their taxes and get fines that are completely out of this world. So that application is available, I know, on the Clover app market. It may be available on some other point of sales as well. And what it does is each and every time you are running transactions on your point of sale device, the Davo is sort of at work. It is pulling together how much you're going to be paying that quarter, and it actually pulls those funds for you and puts them into a secure holding account. So it's just one less thing you have to worry about. Another application that I'm particularly fond of is Menufy. So anybody out there is a restaurant owner, or if you're not a restaurant owner, you might be like me, especially in this pandemic, where first thing you think of is, what am I going to have for dinner? And you turn on your phone and you go into DoorDash and Uber Eats, and you're like, anything on free delivery? I'm not picky. And so we all have some experience with those applications, right? Whether it be Postmates or Grubhub or what have you. And you might have seen that there's been a little bit of chatter about DoorDash and Uber Eats and whether or not their fees have been fair, especially during this pandemic, where we have more and more customers, more and more business owners that are reliant on the delivery of their food, right? Because we can't go into restaurants like we could this time last year and sit down and have a burger. We've got to get it ordered out or takeout or curbside. And so with Menufy, what they've done is they've established partnerships with some of these partners like DoorDash and Uber Eats, where they can actually offer lower price points on what it's costing you as a business owner to run that delivery. So a lot of these applications, DoorDash, Uber Eats, they're charging upwards of about 30% of the transaction. And so it doesn't take a mathematician to sit and say, hey, it's a lot of my money that's going out the door just so that someone can come pick this up from a third party and drop it off. And so Menufy has done a partnership where they will actually help drive more business to your proprietary website. And if you don't have a website set up for your business, it's another thing that they can help you with, is establishing that online presence and then helping to drive attention to that online presence. So people aren't necessarily turning to Uber Eats or DoorDash immediately. Maybe they're thinking, hey, Cravevine's is a delicious restaurant in San Rafael, and I can just go to their website and I can have the delivery done. It's going to cost me less as a consumer than I am paying on DoorDash and Uber Eats for all those additional fees. And it's also going to cost the business owner a lot less. And I think especially now more than ever, more consumers are a little bit more concerned about the local businesses we have. I live in the Bay Area, and my territory for the most part is San Francisco, and the landscape has totally changed even over the last 10, 11 months. And so it's a particular concern to me to make sure I can support local businesses in the community. I want to see them thrive in 2021. The last thing we want to do is see another boarded up business. So Menufy has been extremely helpful for a lot of my customers as well. And then some other features I wanted to talk about were more of the cloud-based features. So depending on what point of sale system you get, like I said, most of them have some cloud-based technology. So you can access information from these point of sales remotely. Like I used the example of before, business owners on vacation in Hawaii, but they need to see what's going on in their business. You can log in there remotely and see what's happening. Some other really cool things that come along with that is sort of the customer management tools. So I have a couple of really nice high-end jewelry companies that I'm working with, and I'm always excited to go in and see all their shiny diamonds and entertain the idea that I have thousands of dollars to spend with them. But one of the things that I've helped a few of them with around the Bay Area, I have a Diamond Brokers of Palo Alto is one of my bigger clients, and I help them with establishing their first point of sale system and then helping them with the customer management. So this is something that's been particularly great for those types of that type of industry, because think about, you're selling diamond rings, you're selling necklaces, brooches, things that are very expensive, and you have a certain clientele, you have a lot of repeat customers. And so how great is it that you can store that data and you can store things like their birthday, their anniversary, their kids' birthdays, right? Think about what a great cross-sell tool that is for you as a business owner. Hey, you know what? It's a new season. It's not a huge season for us. You know, there's no Mother's Day or Christmas or what have you. You're somewhere in the dead of the middle of the year. You can go access that customer database you have and go, hey, Janet's sister's turning 30, you know, she loves those garnet earrings. So let's send her a reminder, or let's send her a discount code. So there's a lot of things that you can do with just managing who your actual clientele is with sort of the cloud-based and remote access. And those were the three highlights I had. So we can go to the next slide. This might be the end of me. Let's see.
Yeah, Rainey, thank you. Great job. And I'll just quickly recap. So, so for all of our members and attendees, you know, keep in mind, we talked about Davo. Sorry, I think I've said that wrong. That's a feature within payment acceptance that can really help you pay your taxes, which we know, especially in that startup stage and smaller businesses, that could become a challenging aspect of having those funds available during tax time. So it will literally pull those taxes out by transaction or by batches. So might be one you could explore with your provider, or if you're getting ready to start a business, something to think about as a way to have that technology enable your company and those tax requirements. Again, Menufy, lots of options there in terms of your online presence and being able to perhaps save some monies there if you're in the restaurant industry around delivery services. And then there are many or several options around customer management tools that you all can take advantage of. In our last webinar, I'm not sure if we have any repeat attendees today, but this was a topic that came up a little bit, both for communicating special offers and promotions, but also you might need to communicate changes to how your business is operating due to COVID or county restrictions and things like that. So love it. Thank you again, Rainey. Appreciate all the wealth of information you provided. And again, folks, if you have got any questions, put those into chat. I'm now really excited to turn it over to Cabra Goldstein. She's, again, one of our partners, works for Homebase. And Homebase really has some incredible things to enable our small businesses around some of the HR aspects of the business. So Cabra, I'll turn it to you. Again, appreciate you joining and supporting our efforts here.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. So I actually typically like to start this out with a little bit of engagement. And I promise that this question will matter throughout the presentation. But does anyone on the call know how long you have to store your individual time card records for? That's a federal law. So hoping some of you on this call may know, and I'll look in the chat box to see if I get anyone. If you don't know, you can also type that you don't know. All right, Phil, you said 7 years. Anyone else want to take a guess? I bet Rainey knows this answer. All right, we got Karen said 5, Anita said 3, Daniel said 5. These are all great guesses, but you are all wrong. So the reason that I bring this question up is because Homebase overall is a team management solution. We make sure that you are staying compliant across the board with not only your time tracking, the way that you are taking breaks, the way that you're scheduling employees, the way that you're hiring, and all the way until you're onboarding. So the goal of Homebase is to manage the entire life cycle of an employee. An easy way to remember this is like we can manage everything from hire to fire, right? So if you want to go to the first slide. So we have been a business since 2014. Historically, we actually started as just a time tracking and scheduling tool. The reason that we were started is because our founder had a sister who worked at 3 different restaurants. She had 3 different restaurant schedules. She had a really hard time actually managing where she was working, when she was working, and there was not one system that was cohesive across the board. So she had a really challenging time managing that for herself. And so John, one of our founders, had this brilliant idea in business school to create a free solution that helps manage everything when it comes to scheduling and then clocking in with that same PIN across the board. So Homebase started as a time tracking and scheduling solution, and we moved into so much more, which is what I'm going to talk about today, and really put a heavy emphasis on HR, hiring, compliance. But this is where our core is. And so as a small business owner, actually storing your time card records for 2 years is a federal law, right? And so with Homebase, you can actually store your time card records within our product. And what's great about this is most of you either have a point of sale system, or if you don't, you're probably tracking time somewhere, right? Whether it's on a physical sheet of paper, maybe it's on a tablet, or you're using another app. So Homebase has a solution where you can actually track your time on really any device. And so you have to do this in order to stay compliant, right? You have to be able to make sure that you're tracking your time from somewhere. And then we really wanted to make it easy to actually build your schedule and track your labor costs. So typical labor cost that you want to stay within is between 20 to 35%. And this is really where Homebase can help make scheduling kind of smarter for a small business. Most small businesses are kind of just shooting in the dark. They have a lot of employees who have been with the business for several years. They maybe haven't changed their schedule for years. It's still existing on paper, right? So this is really where you can bring your business online and get smarter about the actual cost that you're spending on labor. So the ability to actually say, this is how much I'm spending on my labor costs. I'm going to actually put those sales into a schedule and see real time what my labor costs are as I'm building that schedule. So this is really the bread and butter of Homebase. If you want to go to the next slide. I'm going to brag about us for a minute because I think it's really important to talk about our success with this and with our small businesses. So especially in 2020, a lot has changed for small businesses. We really became the solution for small businesses to help communicate to their employees, to help streamline and make sure they're staying compliant, to help them really understand how to stay compliant in a COVID world. And with that being said, we have over 100,000 merchants and 5 stars with 17,000 reviews on all different applications. So we are the solution for small businesses in the US. And so at the beginning of COVID, our overall goal was we're going to completely get rid of anything that we had in our future roadmap and make sure that we could focus on small businesses to really make sure that we know what you guys need during this time. And so if you go to the next slide, this is where we've been able to now manage the entire life cycle of the employee and really make sure that you're staying compliant in this COVID world that we're living in. So before I actually go through kind of every feature on this page and go into a little bit more detail, I have another pop quiz question for you guys on the call. So the question is, do any of you know what FFCRA stands for? We got a lot of no's. Okay. So the FFCRA is the Family's First Coronavirus Response Act. The reason that I bring this up is because this is just one law, right? And this law basically states that if you are sick with COVID, you have to provide paid sick leave no matter how small your business is. I'm going to play off of Rainey's words saying, even if you have a cousin or it's a family business where someone takes advantage of you, it does not matter if they're your family member. If they're sick with COVID and you are paying them, you have to provide paid sick leave no matter how long they've been there for, no matter how much they make. And the reason that this is important is because a lot of small businesses do not offer paid sick leave. And so we actually built this in as a solution for COVID to make sure that you could track the FFCRA inside of like our PTO policies to make sure that you're actually staying compliant as a business. And then when it comes to under FFCRA, another law is actually providing childcare, right? So all you have to do is be employed for 30 days. You have to offer childcare. Thank you, Danielle or Daniel, for chatting in what the FFCRA is. The reason I bring this up, this is one law, right? There are so many laws on a federal level, on a state level, on a city-specific level when it comes to COVID, but also break laws, scheduling laws, time tracking laws. How do you keep up with all of that? I know that if I was a business owner, I would have a really hard time actually trying to remember all of these laws. And who is telling you these laws? Are you just Googling them like we all do and see the first result and you decide that that's what the law is because you don't really want to search further because you have to put out a fire here, a fire there. So this is really where Homebase can be a huge advantage to a small business owner. And so with COVID, we really wanted to put emphasis on the fact that we have an HR product that can actually allow you to talk to a live HR professional and actually get answers on all of this. And we'll send you live alerts so you can actually keep track of everything that's going on with COVID. If there's a new law put into place when it comes to COVID, if there's a second, third, fourth, fifth wave, et cetera. And things like 2021, we're moving into a new year. How are you going to build your new employee handbook? How are you going to rehire people, right? In a post-COVID world, you have to ask the right hiring questions. There is such thing as illegal hiring questions. How do you know what those illegal hiring questions are? And then it's also, how do you actually onboard a new hire, right? Is it just a bunch of paperwork? If you're trying to stay a little bit more protected in a COVID world, how are you actually managing like people coming in and out of the business? And so Homebase actually built an onboarding and document storage piece of the program in response to COVID because we want people touching less paperwork. We want people to be able to actually sign their documents and have those stored so that next year they don't want to have to worry about necessarily figuring out everybody who has to re-up their contracts or their onboarding documentation. It's all stored in Homebase, along with anything like certifications. I saw that someone in here was an event planning company. So if you have to have a certain like event certification that expires, you can store that in Homebase. I saw someone on here who I think is a bear stuffing company, which I love. That throws me back to my Build-A-Bear days. But things like this, where you can make sure that if you need some sort of certifications for any of these activities, you can store those in Homebase. And so with that being said, the bread and butter, as I mentioned, of Homebase is this time tracking and scheduling piece. And so in response to COVID, we really wanted to make sure that we had a way to actually track if somebody was sick with COVID. So we implemented a health and safety checklist that actually pops up right when an employee clocks in. And so no matter what device they're clocking in from, you can actually have your employee fill out a customizable questionnaire. It'll alert you as a manager or business owner if there is an unfavorable answer. And the cool thing about Homebase too is that you can actually clock in on your phone, like from the car. So in my opinion, it makes sense if you don't want to bring COVID into your business. You can actually like geo-fence your business. And this is really great for event companies or like catering companies that may be on this call, where you want them to clock in at a certain location and actually make sure that they're clocking in at the right place at the right time, that they're COVID safe, and that you're actually tracking that. It'll help a lot with contract tracing too. So in addition to that, since I saw just a few really interesting types of businesses on this call, scheduling is probably really interesting for a lot of you, right? So actually being able to build a schedule that's customized to your type of business, that's where Homebase can really fit any type of business. Our sweet spot is actually the very small businesses, probably like a lot of you on this call, probably 5 to 50 employees is where most of our customers sit. And so with our scheduling tool, it's totally customizable. So you can create any sort of events on here and assign, specific events to specific employees, to specific roles. Just makes your life a lot easier, and then real-time labor cost tracking to manage all of those labor costs as well. In addition to that, we offer hiring. So in a post-COVID world, when you are ready to hire back, or even some of these event companies that maybe are more COVID friendly, you'll be able to actually hire directly through Homebase. And so we have partnered with Indeed, Facebook, Google, ZipRecruiter, and it's a one-stop shop to actually manage all the applicants coming in. So it allows you to not have as many logins. It also allows you to not pay any fees, which is typically what you see in a hiring world. And so this is where it comes into like you can manage everything from hire to fire. One of the big pieces of information I want to talk about is that we are really employee centric. So yes, of course, we want to be able to help out the business owner, but I think Rainey mentioned like your employees are your life. Like your entire business would not exist if you did not have these certain employees that are helping run it. And so a lot of the employee features that we have are mobile apps for them to use to communicate with each other, the ability to swap and trade their shifts in real time, the ability to communicate with you as a manager. They can also say if they've had a bad shift and rate their shift at the end of the night. So you can really keep tabs on making sure that they're staying happy and that your business continues to grow. So I think that gives a pretty good high-level overview of Homebase. I'm going to pause there. Rainey, if you have any Homebase stories, which I'm sure you do, I would love to hear a Homebase success story from you and how this has really helped, some of your business owners.
Yeah, absolutely. So Homebase is kind of one of my go-tos, especially for any of my customers who use Clover. It is I install it on every single Clover system because there's some feature in there that is applicable to any business owner, whether it just be some easy way to track time and attendance, right? A lot of my small business owners, before they've taken their first point of sale, they've got like these random sheets of paper everywhere, and it's tracking this person came in at this time, went to lunch at this time, and then they're up all night putting that together in a chart. And so this just helps to eliminate all of that. One particular example that comes to mind, since Kabra, you mentioned the geo mapping. I had an in-home healthcare business wherein some of the employees were tracking their time a little bit, alternatively tracking their time, let's say. So they were stating that they were with a patient from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., but come to find out from the patient, maybe they never showed up, or they were showing up, but they were showing up constantly several hours late. And so this was super helpful for them to have employees actually be able to clock in and sort of show where they're clocking in from. So it gives you that internal verification that, yeah, I trust you to some extent, but, people show up. And think about your first job. You have your best friend at work, clock me in, I'm going to be 20 minutes late from lunch. And so there was no way to identify that type of time clock fraud. And this has been extremely helpful to that particular business, just cutting back on sort of the ghost punching and all of the money lost in payroll. So yeah, huge, great advantage in the features there.
Yeah, I think that's a good call out. And I think Karen in here too had mentioned facial recognition. So Homebase actually can take a picture of the employee as they're clocking in to prevent buddy punching, which is a pretty neat feature. It happens a lot. You like Rainey said, you have your best friend who's like, hey, I'm not going to make it in. Your manager is not always in the store, right, to actually track and manage all of this. So thank you for sharing that, Rainey. So overall, Anita asked a question. She said, I don't have employees. How could I benefit from Homebase? It's a great question. I think that at the end of the day, it's probably not the best fit for you if you don't have employees. This is a team management solution. So I think with the thought that eventually you would have employees, this will be a really great solution for you, because once you do have employees, you're going to run into all of these problems and the reason that we have a business in the first place, right? Which is just managing the team, managing the hiring process, and making sure you're staying compliant, which is the most important piece of this all.
Awesome. Great update, Cabra. Thank you so much. My wife's a business owner, and she's been one of those that had to journey through learning all these different components on the HR side of things and the team solutions. And I just wish we had this, prior to 2014 when you all started. So again, thanks for that update. And to all of our attendees and members, again, the spirit of today's presentation was really about, thinking beyond just accepting the card, right? And how payment acceptance can really enable your business, can save you time, save you money, mitigate risk, help you manage your customer base, help you manage your employees, your probably most precious resource as you staff up and hire up, et cetera. So we would love to open it up for any final questions. I'm not seeing any in the Q&A. So Morgan, I might check to see if you've got any more in the chat. Sounds like Cabra answered those too, but we'll open it up to see if there's any final questions.
Yeah, please feel free to use the chat or the Q&A box if you have any questions for Rainey or Cabra, Matt or Damon on anything that we covered here today.
All right, not seeing any come in, but if they do, we'll make sure to circle back. Oh, check it out. Karen's asking another question. Does Homebase have tier packages available? So it sounds like this might be a little bit around the pricing, Cabra.
Yeah, great question, Karen. So the best part about Homebase is that we actually have a completely free product. We do have tiered pricing. It's based on features. So even if you do have 50 employees, you could still potentially be on our free product. So really good to know. But if you look at our website, it's joinhomebase.com. And then at our pricing page, you can see the breakdown. Our most expensive plan is $100 a month. And that's where you can actually have that live HR help, which if you were to hire an HR person internally, it's obviously going to cost a lot more money than that. So if you are looking to have somebody help you with that piece of your business, definitely worth the dollar amount there.
Great question, Karen. Thanks for asking. I'm sure it was on other folks' mind as well. I scanned through it, and yeah, there was the free suite of options, and then there's some pretty low-cost options too, up to that 100. So just a little added context there. Well, I tell you what, Morgan and Matt and Rainey and Cabra, and then to all of our attendees, we really appreciate your time. Actually, I'm going to pause It looks like Phil has a question. So let me put this back to the group. What is Clover Flex or Go systems? Rainey, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So Clover has a suite of products that they offer, and that includes a few different pieces of equipment. So Clover Flex and the Clover Go are both your portable pieces of equipment through Clover. You still get the same level of access and everything that comes along with Clover, including, you know, having the remote access, everything stored to the cloud, etc. The Clover Flex is a handheld device. You know what? And I think I have an example, but it's like in my car, so I won't be able to show it to you right now. I wish I would have had it on hand. But it's a handheld version. If you Google search it, you can find it. It is probably a little bigger than the biggest iPhone, so it's going to look like a little miniature tablet. But it's handheld. It's really come in handy, especially during this pandemic with the need for curbside pickup. So you'd be able to actually, if you have a restaurant or even a retail store, you bring out your order. Think about when you go to Best Buy, you can pull up in the parking lot. But you'd be able to come out with the Clover Flex and you could take a payment directly into the device. There's some additional peripheral devices that they've included to help with the sort of not passing the device back and forth. But it's the portable version. It has a self-contained receipt printer. You get all the perks of Clover with any of the devices you choose. And then the Clover Go system is very much like Square's solution. So I think many of us know Square and what they offer, but they came out and kind of got famous off of the small card reader you attach to your phone. And so the Clover solution for that, it is paired with your phone or your tablet, some device that can access the internet and access the application. And it doesn't have to actually be plugged into the phone. It will connect via Bluetooth. So it's a nice, cheaper alternative to actually investing in an entire point of sale system. Maybe if you are selling from, you know, like a swap market or swap meet, something that's sort of outdoors, or maybe you have a food truck or something that's sort of more self-contained. That's an easy solution for you to be able to take card payments and still have that access to that system that's cloud-based.
Awesome summary. Great question, Phil. Thanks for asking that. And
we do have another one. We do have another one in the chat, Damon, so I'll share that one.
Oh, great.
The question is, can home-based be used if a business is home-based? Example, food delivery or medical billing and coding.
Yeah, good question. So similar to the example that Rainey gave, was, I believe, a home healthcare type of business that was using home-based. So it really just, it's any kind of employee can use home-based. All you have to do is just download home-based time clock, whether that's on your mobile phone, on a tablet, or on the web, and you can start tracking time for that employee. If you do want to be able to actually like capture the location of them, that is a paid feature. But if you're just looking to simply grab a time card from that employee, it's totally free. You could do it right now. It would take you 2 minutes to sign up for Homebase and actually, you know, track that time.
Great questions. Love it. Any more come in, Morgan?
Nope, that's all I'm seeing.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Morgan, Hebra, Rainey. Matt had to drop for his next appointment today, but appreciate Matt. And then thank you all to the members. As I close out anyway, I'll give it to Morgan here in just a minute. I just want to send you all the very best through the holiday season. If you're like me, you're looking forward to the new year, the new start. I know the pandemic won't go away as we move into the new year, but at least we have that fresh start. So hopefully you've got some optimism going into 2021. And just also want to thank and encourage all of you for your entrepreneur spirit and leveraging PCV as a partner to enable your aspirations. And we're proud and excited to be able to support all of your efforts as well. So thank you so much. And Morgan, I'll flip it to you.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us and spending this afternoon with us. To everyone who's listening in, I hope you found this helpful. I will follow up afterwards later today or tomorrow with a recording from today, as well as the slides that you can get that information afterwards and kind of review again afterwards. And like Damon says, please lean on us. Come to PCV for any of your challenges or opportunities that you're facing with your business. We love to get you connected with an advisor to help you through all of that. And I'll share information in that follow-up email on how you can get connected with an advisor as well. So thank you again to everybody on the call. Thank you again to our presenters for joining us. And yes, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy. Have a good one.